Good evening. Let's see here. Should I check it out? Y'all come on in. Come on in. I'm going to leave it down like this. Yes. Y'all come on in. It's Wednesday night. It is the night for Conversations with Seema. Again, come on in. Come on in. Come on in. It is sharply 9 p.m. tonight. And we're going to get started very quickly here because I am kid-free tonight and I want to watch some TV before I go to bed. So I would like to get off and take my shower and get ready for tomorrow and pamper myself a little bit, do a little bit of facial things, and then enjoy the rest of my evening. Just me, myself, and I. So y'all come on in. Hey, Melissa, come on in. Oh, I got something for y'all tonight. Come on in. Come on in. We're going to have some fun tonight. Fun. Tonight's going to be very interactive. I want you guys to interact with me. Come on in, Sharon. And we're going to be talking about a big topic tonight. Standards and preferences. And I want to talk about the difference between the two. And single ladies, I want to help you guys because let me tell you something. One of the things that I have learned over the last, 2012 to 2020, 8 years. I started as a coach in 2012. I received my certification from the best, Tony Gaskins Jr., who is one of the top life coaches in this here United States of America. Hey, Fran, welcome. Good to see you. And I received my certification from him December 2012, finished up. And some of you may know, and some of you might not even know, but when I was getting my certification, I knew I was getting a divorce, even though I was still in the home, but in my head and my heart, I was getting a divorce. My body just hadn't caught up yet. That's another topic for another day. But anyway, so I was preparing for what was to come. That's one thing about a woman. If you don't know anything about us ladies, is we always prepare for what's ahead. It's the men folk that walk up in there with the eyeballs like this, called, hey, Shay, hey, cousin Shay, good to see you. It's the men folk that get caught. Standards and preferences. It's the men folk that get caught with the pants down because they're like, no, she didn't leave me. She really left me. Hey, Teresa. And because they don't think it's going to happen. But we ladies plan ahead. So in 2012, I was taking my class with Tony Gaskins, I believe for about 3 or 4 months. I can't remember how long it took. And I received my certification. And I remember not having anybody to celebrate with. My spouse was sitting right downstairs. He wasn't trying to hear anything about me bettering myself. So I called all my girlfriends or text them and said, and even one of my guy friends, we were all on the feed and we said, I'm so excited. I jumped and took a leap and got my certification as a life coach. And they was like, oh my God. And I said, so let's take a virtual toast. Just sharing a story today. And everybody said, okay, hold on. And everybody went and got whatever they were toasting with, whether it was water, juice, wine, a shot of liquor, whatever. And we all went bing virtually. So, hey, Marshawn, I shared that to just say, when I started in 2012, I was brand new at this. And I created a coaching package that I still use today. I've just tweaked it a lot as I've gone about. It's called the Relationship Autopsy, and it's a 4-step process. And so week number 1, and some of the ladies that will be coming on have been through this, so they know all about it. It's very intense. Week number 1, we talk about their past as the way they grew up. And so one of my students, or one of my clients, I should say, she said, Seema, man, you know how to ask all those questions that are so hard to answer. Like, these are really tough questions. And that's my job as a coach, to ask you those questions. Hey, Sharice and Belinda, good to see you tonight. To ask you those questions so that you will think. The second week during the Relationship Autopsy, for those of you who just joined, we have them talk about themselves. I have them talk about themselves and how they see themselves. And what I found, hey, Kiki, what I found is a lot of the ladies, once they come to me, either they're coming out of a relationship or they were in one and they're still going through the healing process. Good to see you, Janice. But they don't really feel good about themselves. So we write all of that down. And in week number 3, I make them do what we call a relationship resume. So the same way you guys have a resume, professional resume, I have them do a relationship resume. Well, what is that, Seema? They actually go through the resume and they write down all the significant relationships. Now, the definition of significance has nothing to do with time. In some cases, it does apply to time, but not always. So they have to decide if the relationship was significant. If you were dating somebody for 2 days, more than likely it wasn't a significant relationship. But I have them write down all significant relationships and the time period and how old they were, some of the pros and cons that they learned about the relationship. And believe it or not, a lot of the women never even thought about going back to Joe from 10th grade to 2 years out of college and just talking about what were the good things about my relationship with Joe and what were the bad things about my relationship with Joe, basically the pros and cons. And once they put it all on paper, I say to them, if you were a CEO or a husband and you were looking at your resume to choose the next possible employee, wife, what would you say about your resume? And that's when they're all like, huh? What would you say about yourself? The hardest question, but the most profound activity, because what we determine during that is we find patterns. I am very much, I love very hard. Well, how do you know that, young lady? Well, if you look at my resume, you can see I probably stayed in every last one of those relationships way too long. Or I am an enabler, or maybe I'm a codependent, or maybe I'm a commitment phobic. I don't like to commit. Whatever it is, I help them find the patterns. That's my job as a coach, is to help my client find the patterns. Otherwise, they're going to repeat them. So that is the whole point of the relationship autopsy. Now, the 4th week, we talk about standards and preferences. And so I work with them in the list. We write down. A lot of people say you shouldn't have lists. But let me tell you something. The Bible tells us to write the vision and make it plain. I believe anything that you're serious about, you need to write it down. You need to write it down. Because when you write it, it's something about writing it. The writing, hey, Pamela, the writing actually is, for some reason, I don't know. And I read a study about this a while back. But when you write something, so I'm studying for my Series 65 right now. I actually write my notes. And those things that I write, I retain better. I don't know what the connection is. I don't recall. But it's something about writing something down. Same way when I was in school, when I would write things over and over. That's why we tell the children, you're going to sit here and write, I will not be disrespectful to mommy 100 times. Because something about writing it, eventually it gets into your mind, which eventually gets into your heart, which will eventually go into your body, or you take action. So we write down their preferences and their standards. So I let them do their own. That's their homework. And then we come together and we work through it. Now, so tonight I want to help you guys with your preferences and standards. So the first thing is we want to talk about, why do we need the both of them? First of all, your standards. Hey, Ursula, your standards are your deal breakers, meaning there's no compromising. So with that in mind, ladies, I was almost about to say gentlemen, but there are none here. Just us girls. Having a little slumber party at 9 p.m. on Wednesday night. Anyway, so your standards are deal breakers, which means anything you put in your standard category, you must know that In your heart, you're saying, regardless of who the person is, I will not compromise on these. And I'm going to have you guys give me some examples of your standards here in just a few. So we're going to interact tonight. So y'all might as well go ahead and get your little paper and your pencil and be thinking about it, or start thinking about it. Your preferences are things that are important to you, but you would be willing to negotiate. And the reason why we have to have some things that we are willing to negotiate, you guys, is because no one is perfect, not even you. Let me say that again. No one is perfect, not even you. So they may have all your standards done. Check, 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 check. Your preferences, they may have gotten 3 out of the 7. You have to look at those preferences and say, they got 3 of them. The other 7, can I live without it? Now, some women would call that settling. I don't call it settling. What I call settling is if you settle on your standards. That's why y'all got to take some time and really think about these lists, because you got to know what it is that is a deal breaker. If you put down something on your Hey Tiffany and your standards list, then that means you're not going to break it. So if you choose someone that doesn't fit on that list, then you are settling. On your preference list, these things are still important to you. However, you are willing to negotiate for the right candidate. Okay? For example, when I got my new job in September, y'all hear me, hear me, hear me. When I got my new job in September, the lady hires me. First of all, they created a job for me. That's the first thing. Created a job. I'm the only person in the entire company that has this position. Okay? Now, because of my position, I needed my insurance license and my Series 65, which is an investment advisor license. I didn't have them. I have been in the 401k business for 25 years, but everything that I had done did not require to have a license. Actually, I got one years ago when I was working for the Hartford, but it expired. So one of their preferences was, we would like to have a candidate with this, and this. We would prefer that she or he already have their licenses so we don't have to go through it. But they hired me because I met the standards, and they would be willing to negotiate on me having my license. So guess what? I'm getting my licenses and they are paying for it. Do you see how that works? Preferences are important, but they are negotiable. So when you guys sit down and make these lists, that's going to be your homework tonight. And some of you, if you feel like it, I want you to inbox me and share some of them with me. But that's totally up to you. But tonight, we're going to talk about the difference. First, I want you all to understand that both of them are your rights. So I want you to know, when men, that's why I stopped accepting men on my page, because they don't understand us as women from the get-go, okay? When men try to tell you your standards are too high, you need to respond back and say, you might think so, but they are my right. I remember before I got married to the boy's daddy, I didn't want anybody that had children because I didn't have children. And so some of my girlfriends used to say, that ain't fair. That's being judgmental. That's not fair because just because they have children. Well, listen here. I don't want someone that has children, but that was a preference. I would prefer they do not have they don't have children, because I didn't have any. But you better believe, had I met a very nice, charming, sweet, educated, rich, gainfully employed, a man who was after God's heart, who had a child or two, yes, ma'am, because I know I'm a good mommy, and I would have been a great stepmom. So are you going to turn down that guy because he does not meet your preferences? But we're going to talk about how you weigh those out here in a minute. So first, both of them are your right. You have a right to have standards as a woman, and you have a right to have preferences. So if you say you don't want somebody with big old feet, that's your preference. Both are influenced by your values and experiences. We usually don't know what we don't want in a mate until we've had what we don't want. Nobody, not many people say from the get-go, okay, I want this and I want this and I want this and I want this is what I would like to have, God, and this and that. But then God gives it to you and you're like, no, I don't want that. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want somebody who's a mama's boy where you thought it was cute when you were dating because he just loves his mommy. Okay? So we really don't know what we don't want until we find out that we don't want it. So all of our standards and preferences as we grow, they're going to change as you get older, are influenced by your values and experiences. Make sure your standards and preferences respect others. Respect others. Both are important to you, but not equally. Both are important, but they're not equally important. Your standards have to be more important than your preferences. Otherwise, you got things on the wrong list. Okay? Preferences are negotiable. We already talked about that. And depending on how solid your standards are. Let me explain that. I just gave you an example. If you met a man that met all of your standards and one or two of your preferences he didn't meet, dear, I would not turn down taking a date or continuing to date this person, because obviously he's met your standards. Okay, you've got to learn how to weigh that out. Your standards, as we said before, are your deal breakers. You may or may not get everything on your list, and you must be open. Hey, Sissy Pooh. Y'all, everybody say hey to my Sissy Pooh. Hey, mwah, mwah, mwah. And no, we're not twins. You may or may not get everything on your list, dear. Be open. And I'm not asking you to accept something that God has not given you. I'm only asking you to have an open mind. To have an open mind. As I said, as you get older and you pray over these lists, I promise you, matter of fact, if I was a betting woman, I would bet all my money, and y'all ain't getting my money, that as you get older, God's going to say, girl, you don't even need that. Girl, that ain't important. Girl, them pretty teeth, that's why they got a dentist. Don't even worry about it. Okay? Your mind will change as you mature. Standards should not be cosmetic. And what I mean by that is, on your list of standards, they should be foundationally dealing with character. The reason why is because Tony Gaskins, my mentor coach, said, let his character be his currency. Let his character be his currency. You want to rate him or establish value? Do it the way God does. Let his character be his currency, not his teeth, not his eyes. Oh, girl, he ain't got brown eyes. I can't do nothing. I can't do nobody with they don't have brown eyes. Really? Not his shoe size, not his height. Who can help how tall or short they are? No one. That is something beyond his control. I was one of those two. Oh, he got to be 6'6", girl, 235. That's because my first husband was 6'3", 235. And fine. Okay? So as you grow older, some of these things don't matter anymore. I'm telling you, they don't matter, you young ladies. No, listen, Tony Gaskins said, you're going to mess around and get a 6'6", 6-pack, 6 feet, and 6 figures. And we know what 666 is, the devil. Okay? Cosmetics things should not be on your standards list. So, funny story. Client I had one time, and she had all this stuff on her list. I said, you know what? Let's talk about if we can move those over to the preferences. Oh, no. Honey. He got to be 6'2". I can't do nobody. They got to be 6'2". They got to be dark skinned. They got to have abs. They got to, she had a whole list of, they got to drive a nice car. And they got to, and I said, child, child, you might be single a while. Either that or hung up with some player. No. Let's put those over on our preferences. They're still important, but they don't establish any character. And let me tell you something, honey. Anybody can buy a Mercedes. Anybody can pay the payment on a Mercedes. It's when that service comes It's when that service or a part breaks, that's when you find out what the real deal is on that Mercedes. Anybody can work a job that's 6 figures. But baby, how much you got in the bank? He could be an overspender. He could be coming to wreck your credit. That's why I'm saying these things you have got to put on your preferences and stick with things that deal with character. Let his character be his currency. Preferences can be full of cosmetic items that are important to you. Have at it. Lord, I would like, because the Bible says that God will give us the desires of our heart. Now, don't forget the second part of that scripture. If we delight ourselves in him. So you got work to do. Most of God's commandments or promises have a B clause. Y'all better read them B clauses. If you do this, give, period, and it shall be given unto thee. Luke 6:38. Press down, shaking together. Boo, you cannot get the second part of the scripture until you do the first. Give. Okay? So y'all got to understand that you can put all these things on your preference list. These are the things I say, write it down. If your heart wants it, write it down. The Lord may oblige. But guess what? He might say, you don't even need that. And as you pray over these, and we'll talk about that at the end, he will reveal that to you. Rate them in importance. And when I say rate them in importance, I mean standards, but I'm really talking about the preferences. Rate it in importance. Okay. So one of the things we do in week 3 on the relationship autopsies, I have the girls, my clients do a little survey. And I ask them to rate several things from 1 to 10. And I ask them to be very, very honest. Nobody knows what's on the paper but you and I and the man upstairs. So you can be brutally honest. They consist of things like sex, family, having children, money, faith, religion, relationship with God. That's one. What's the other ones? I can't think of all of them right now, but the list of it, there's a whole list. And so I asked them to rate it. And so one young lady was like, well, my number on sex is 3. I said, okay, fine. Are you being honest with that number? She said, yes, it's really not that important to me. Okay, fine. I'm glad that we could be honest. Now, if you met someone and in your conversation with him, he said his sex level was on a 10. Hear me. He says by your conversations, you can tell sex is important to him like a 10. Now, what you need to know is, are you willing to come up from a 3 to a 6? And is he willing to come down from a 10 to a 6? Y'all can meet halfway. Because if you go into it and expect him to come down to a 3 and he expects you to come up to a 10, you're going to always be a fail in that situation. You got to know how to meet each other in the middle, which means both parties sacrifice. Both parties. But if you don't know where you stand, how do you know how to have those conversations? Half of the time, y'all don't know where you stand in these situations. You don't know if sex is important to you. You don't even know if family is important to you. If family is important to you, you have a big family, or whether you have a small family, but family is important to you and he hates his family, y'all need to have a conversation about it, because on your preference list, you just put down, I would prefer to have someone who loves family. You got to decide how important is that to you. So you're going to rate them in importance. Okay? That's how you'll know when you start weighing out the preferences after you've met this fabulous guy, whether they are worth negotiating. Okay? Now, lastly, pray over your list often. One of my clients said, how often? As much as you can think about it. Because as you grow older, as you heal, as you learn more, as you experience more, as you date more, you're going to find out that your lists are going to change. You should not have 100 standards. Baby, you're going to be single forever. Find out whether the most important things, like for me, a standard, is they must be a great example. If I ever step up there and say I do again, y'all, you better know I vetted that person out and they are an excellent example for my 2 kings. Otherwise, I'm going to sit my hind parts right here until they go away off to be an adult. Because to me, I have put them through enough, going through the divorce and everything else they've had to deal with. And I'm not bringing no joker in here and insert them in the hierarchy of life between God and me. And then y'all do know when you get married, you slide that person in between you and God in the hierarchy. So now it's God, him, you, and the kids. Right now, God is my covering. Okay? Now, so that's a big deal to me. That's a big deal. So to insert that person in there, I need them to be an excellent example for my boys. And only I know how to define that. Only you know how to define that. As you grow, you need to continue to pray, and they will change. Expect God to say, delete that. Expect God to say, that ain't even important. Expect God to say, move that to the preference list. Expect God to say, move that to the standards. Expect God to say, your list is nice. I like it. Then a year or two later, expect God to say, now you got a child. No, I need to put this over here. You got to be open to hear the Holy Spirit. That's why you got to pray over your list and pray. Lord, if you want me to change something about what I desire in a mate, please, please, God, tell me. Let me know so that I can make the adjustments. Thank you so much. And he will. And lastly, y'all better review them friends list. There are a lot of men in your friends list, and I'm not saying your husband is there, but he could possibly be in there. Because as your list changed, maybe somebody that you put in the friend zone has now become a qualified candidate. Y'all better look through those friends lists, clean them up the same way y'all do your friends list on social media. You better look in your friends list, because what is the first thing that a couple needs? To be friends. Okay, now, so let's talk about some examples of standards and preferences. Okay, does anybody want to share a standard that they would have on their list? Anybody? Just go ahead. Just type it in there. It's only ladies here, no shame. Everything that goes on here stays here. There are no men in this group. The only time a man would be invited into this group if they came to speak, and as soon as they spoke, they would be outed. Put out. Bye-bye. I created this platform so that we can come and have conversations without people popping in and all listening. Well, and woman, this, we ain't got time. Can we have a peaceful moment to talk about women things? We're not bashing men. We're not doing none of that over here. We're talking about women. We're taking upon ownership and responsibility for our own trauma, for our own healing right over here in conversations with Seema. And that's what we're going to do. So if you would like to share a standard, go ahead and type it in. All right, there's one. He must be a hard worker. That's biblical. Adam had work before he had a wife. Adam had work before he had a wife. Check it out. Genesis. Adam, God put him to work first. And Adam had a job of naming all the... Can you imagine Adam had to name all the animals? Now, we look at the animals, like, where y'all think them names came from? That was Adam's job. Adam had a job before he had a wife. Okay, Fran said a non-smoker. Fran said he cannot, if he pull out a cigarette and smoke, that's my exit. I'm flexing it to the exit. All right, Marshawn said loyal. He must be loyal. Now, Marshawn, what I would like to say to you, you need to establish in your mind how to qualify that. Loyal. How do you qualify it? Well, one way you can do is you can watch how he treats his family. Is he loyal to his family? If he goes to a church, is he loyal to the church? Is he loyal to the church? All right. If he's in an organization, is he loyal? His friends, listen to the conversations about him, talk about his friends. Is he telling all their business? Is he loyal? Listen, you got to be able to qualify these things by watching, because most men are not going to just come out and tell you, girl, I ain't loyal. Don't be with me. I'm not loyal. You got to get keen on it. Tamika said respectful. Absolutely. To be respectful. Tamika, You got to learn how to qualify that. How do you qualify respectful? How do you qualify? And so with this in mind, when you go out on a date, you need to be watching and listening for qualifications of how he is respectful. Anybody else? How about honest? How about faithful? How about my number one, he must be saved. I haven't met as one person that comes in mind, and Tamika's probably going to know who he is, and the rest of y'all not going to know. So Tamika, so what? You know, so. But anyway, I met this incredible guy. This was years ago, right after I got divorced. I met just amazing, perfect guy. But y'all, he was a Muslim, and I didn't know this. Again, you got to ask these questions up front, because I assume because his parents were pastor and first lady that he was a Christian, but he was Muslim. And he finally tells me after maybe a month or two of talking. And then I finally realized I could never do that. Hey, Erica. So you got to ask up front. Make sure, make it clear. Don't make no assumptions. Just because they go to church, y'all, don't mean they're saved. But for me, however that is for you, you have to be, we have to be on the same page or equally yoked when it comes to our faith. And the reason that is because I just told you, when you get married, you have to insert this person above you in between God spiritually. If you guys are not on the same page, he's a Muslim, I'm a Christian, how that gonna work? Okay, now somebody else may say that's not important to me, but that's on my list. Okay, Tamika said take care of his kids. Booyah. Totally on my standards list. And you want to know why? Because number one, I have kids. And number two, my mother raised us by herself, while my father raised another family 2 streets over. You got to take care of your kids. Otherwise, bye-bye. Standard for me. Now, what another one might say, no, that's just a preference because I ain't got nothing to do with his past. I'm looking at right now. Well, that's on you. But I got to know if you have children that you are taking care of. And so I asked him, when's the last time you seen your daughter? Oh, that's so sweet. When is the last time you seen her? And he said, well, I ain't seen her in like 3 years. Clue. No, boo. That tells me that number one, you're not taking care of your babies because it's more than money. Tamika says selfless and cannot be a narcissist. Listen here. Most people don't even know what a narcissist is. So y'all gonna have to look that up. We are gonna do a conversation about that, and I'll have either a therapist or a clinical psychologist on. But you guys need to know what a narcissist is, and it is the hardest thing to detect. Okay, so they cannot. She said selfless and narcissist. What about this one, y'all? I had to put this on my list. Y'all better add this one in. This is a fresh one. They cannot be. Oh, wait a minute. Let me just say it this way: heterosexual. Please be heterosexual. Please be heterosexual. No bisexual and not with the kid, boo. No. I need to know. So you saying you mean to tell me we got to ask questions now about the sexual? You sure do. You sure do. You got to. Okay, what about some preferences? Come on, because I'm running out of my time. What we got? I don't want to hold y'all too long. Okay. Yep, we got about 5 minutes. What about preferences? Okay, here's a preference, and some people might say this is standard. I need for him to be either on the same or more mature than me spiritually. Now, over time, I have relaxed that a little bit, only because I feel like I am very spiritually mature, and so, and I also know that someone who is hungry and after God can rise up above me. I do know that. But at the same time, for you to lead me spiritually, I need you to know something. So that one, you kind of got to weigh it out. Now, some people might put that on their standards. Like, listen here, a pastor, a female that's a pastor, she's got to have a husband probably that is either more spiritual equivalent. I consider that as one of the ways of being equally yoked. For me, I would love for them to have entrepreneurial goals because that way we can support each other. And so when I'm grinding half the night, they can grind too. That would make it easier. However, what if you made a person who meets all your standards and they're not an entrepreneur? LaPamela said romantic. Yes. If physical touch and things like quality time is your love language, then you need to make sure that these types of things are on your list. Pretty teeth. Everybody likes nice teeth, but listen here, y'all. You can get teeth are fixable. If I were you, Lord have mercy, we can just go to the dentist. That's what the dentist is for, okay? Some people say, I would rather they not have been married before. That might be a preference. It could be on your standards list, okay? But be careful. Or you might say, I have said, I would prefer to have someone who has been married before. The reason why is because I have. And they know that marriage is hard. It ain't no cakewalk. So if you marry somebody that has not been married, they have no idea how this Genesis 2:22 is going to happen, becoming one. They don't know how that works. You've already been on this. You've been on this rodeo once. So you have to weigh all of that out. Somebody say, my children are gone. I need him to have adult children. That might be on your standards list. To me, it's a preference. I don't really care because I have children. Okay? Somebody say, I would prefer they live in my same state because I just can't do long distance. I just can't. Make it a preference because guess what? For the right man, guess what? You will. You will do it. You will do it. Yes, you will. What else? Anybody else? Anybody else? A preference. Anybody? Anybody? Nobody? Okay, so what I want you guys to do for your homework for this week is I want you to really think about your list. If you are single and you are ready to mingle, you need to have all this worked out before you start dating. Because if not, you get tripped up. I'm trying to tell you, let some of these older ladies on the line let you know. Have this stuff worked out because it's going to save you a bunch of time. As soon as that brother hit one of them standards, sir, it has been so nice. I'm so grateful that we had this time. But I don't think that this is going to go any further. Just tell them because it's not. Okay? It's hard to do, especially if you're an empath like myself and you just don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You have to tell them. If he hit one of them standards that you know is so important and they go, boom, you're like, God, he was fine too. He was so fine. But listen, fine ain't got nothing to do with them standards. Stick by them. That's why your standards list has to be, don't make it too long. Make it concrete. Make it solid. Make it foundational. Okay? So that when you stand on those standards, those are your pillars. And when we see you walk or get up there and say, I do, we know that brother, if ain't nothing else happen, he met them standards. You got it? You got it? So know the difference between your standards and your preferences. If you can keep them separate, it's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of heartache, a lot of pain. And listen, you don't want to miss the guy or the man that God's going to send. Do y'all remember the story? And I close with this. Where the man said, God, I was drowning and I called for help. You didn't send nobody. He said, I sent a helicopter, the Coast Guard, whole lot of people. And because it didn't look like what you thought it should look like, you turned my help away. So now you out here by yourself. Y'all got to be very careful. Pray over those lists and say, God, don't let me miss it. 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 Use my friends. Use people that I trust before I miss out. God, help me. Hey, Jean. So before I go, I want to pray real quick and we out of here. Father, we thank you so much for your grace and your mercy, your loving kindness, God, your wisdom, God, your compassion, God, your provision, everything you do for us on a daily basis. God, I thank you for the ladies who join in tonight to talk about standards and preferences. God, help them create their list. Let them be solid. Let them be reasonable. God, let them be things that these men folk can rise up to, God. Don't let them be too low. Give them some high standards. They need to give them something to rise up to. That's what's wrong with these men folk today. But at the same time, God, make sure they're reasonable. If she has a desire to get married, God, I pray right now that she would cut out all the weed, God. Cut out all the weed and make the one you have for her just as plain as day. Don't let her miss it. Don't let her miss it, God. Use her friends, use her co-workers, people that she trusts before she miss out on it. Lord, if there's standards that need to be moved over, show us right now in our sleep, in our dreams, God. Talk to us, confirm it with us. If there's preferences, God, that we know better needs to be moved over to standards, God. Talk to us, show it to us in our dreams, late at night, whatever you need to do. We thank you and we trust you, God. You know better what we need than we know. We trust you. In Jesus' name, we declare it to be so. Amen. Y'all have a wonderful, 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 wonderful night. Listen, if you feel like sharing some of your standards and preferences with me this week after you've thought about it, go ahead and do so in my inbox. I'll be glad to chat with you about it. If you send a message and I don't answer quickly, I'm at work. I'll get back to you. But I want you to have this clear in your mind. So clear, nobody can shake you down. Okay? I love y'all. Until next week. By the way, next week we won't have one, or I'll move it to another date. I haven't decided yet, because next Wednesday I'm in Charlotte marrying a very cute couple that reached out to me, and they are getting married next Wednesday night in Charlotte. And your girl right here is officiating the wedding. Now, booyah! Y'all, be happy. Be happy. Be happy and enjoy the rest of your night. Love you. Mwah.